I stood at the doorway, unnoticed, as my son fastened a diamond bracelet around his wife's wrist. Her laughter danced through the house I once cleaned top to bottom, the same house where my medication now sat untouched on the counter. Too expensive, he'd said. We've got other priorities, Mom. That word used to mean something. I carried him through colic, croup, and custody battles. Now I was an inconvenience with a copay. Wait, before we go any further, I gotta ask, where are you watching from? Drop it in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. Marion's thumb hovered over the message before she hit send. Can you pick up my refill? $83, insulin. It was a routine ask, nothing emotional, nothing dramatic. Just a simple request sent to her only son. She waited, phone in hand, eyes resting on the clock above the microwave, as the hum of her refrigerator filled the silence. 3 minutes later, his reply buzzed in. That's not in the budget this week. Wait till next month. No follow-up, no questions. Not even a, how much do you have left, Mom? She placed the phone on the table without a sound and moved to the drawer beside the pantry. Inside was her glucose pen pack. She opened it, counted. 1 pen. Half used. Maybe 2 or 3 days left if she rationed. 4, if she skipped lunch. The house creaked in the afternoon heat. Outside, the breeze stirred the lemon tree near the porch. Marion pressed her hand to the wall to steady herself. She stepped out onto the porch, letting the screen door slap shut behind her. Geraldine Hoyt spotted her before she could sit. You look like a ghost. Sit down before I drag you back inside, Geraldine snapped, already halfway across the lawn. Marion obeyed, easing into the wicker chair. Her legs trembled beneath her skirt. I'm fine, just a little lightheaded. Fine people don't look like they're fading out of their own porch. Geraldine, her gray curls tucked under a sun-faded Temecula fair cap, pulled a protein bar from her tote and pushed it into Marion's hand. Eat. Slowly. Marion unwrapped the bar with shaky fingers, the scent of peanut butter hitting her nose like a memory. She took small bites. Geraldine stood over her like a hawk. What happened? Colin can't pick up my refill this week, Marion said, voice even. Said it's not in the budget. Geraldine didn't speak right away. Her lips tightened. She pulled a water bottle from her tote and set it beside Marion. Finish that. Then we're driving to Rite Aid. The car smelled like peppermint gum and hand sanitizer. Geraldine kept the windows half cracked. Marion stared at the passing scenery, the clean strip malls, the shimmering roads, the same drugstore they'd both used for years. When they arrived, there were 5 people ahead of them. Marion leaned against the pharmacy counter while Geraldine paced behind her. Pierce? The pharmacy tech finally called. Marion stepped forward. I'm here for my insulin refill. Marion Pierce. The tech nodded. It's still unclaimed. We can fill it again, but just so you know, it's still $83. I know. Before Marion could reach for her wallet, Geraldine stepped in. Put it on this, she said, sliding her card across. Don't argue, Marion didn't. 2 days later, the house was quiet again. The evening sun poured through the blinds, casting long stripes across the carpet. Marion scrolled through her phone, mostly to check Lily's school updates. But then she saw it. Tessa's wrist, perfectly posed in the sunlight. A diamond tennis bracelet glittered under a filter. The caption read, My husband gets me. Spoiled in silver. Marion stared at the image. The date in the corner read June 3rd. Same day the pharmacy had called to say her prescription was still sitting unclaimed. Same day she'd decided not to return the call. She didn't curse, didn't cry. She just looked at the photo for another moment, then tapped Save. The old inkjet printer in her back room whirred and clicked. She printed the post. The glossy ink shimmered faintly under the lamp. Marion flipped the paper over and wrote in clean cursive, June 3rd, refill ignored. Tessa's bracelet posted. She slipped the sheet into a file folder and labeled it by hand. June, witnessed. Then she slid it into her locked filing cabinet, second drawer from the bottom, and closed it softly. The key turned in the lock with a soft metallic clack, precise and final. Marian crouched beside the bottom drawer of the beige filing cabinet, her knees creaking in protest. Morning light filtered through the kitchen blinds, cutting narrow beams across the floor like pale ribbons. She opened the drawer slowly, letting the cool air hit her face as she reached inside. Everything was in order. It always was. She pulled out the thick maroon folder labeled Estate Pierce. The label printed in 16-point Arial and taped cleanly to the tab. She placed it on the kitchen table, then straightened herself with the help of the chair's armrest. Her joints weren't what they used to be. The folder opened with a soft rustle. The paper inside was smooth and crisp, no bent corners, no staples out of place. Her will sat at the top, just beneath the cover sheet. Executor, Colin Pierce. Alternate, Tessa Pierce. Marian stared at their names for exactly 5 seconds. Not a moment more. There was no drama to it. No trembling hands or storm of emotion. Just an old habit of reading things through before taking action. Then she picked up the red pen from the mug on the windowsill. The same pen she used for notes, for crossword corrections, for anything that required certainty. With one clean stroke, she drew a heavy line through both names. Not scribbled, not crossed out in frustration, just a single, deliberate strike. Red against white. Behind her, the back door opened with a familiar creak. Geraldine stepped in, holding a small canvas bag and her morning paper tucked beneath one arm. "You're not just thinking about it anymore, huh?" "I'm not." Geraldine peered over her shoulder at the folder. "I see red ink. Good sign." "They had a choice," Marian said, her voice even. "Now I've made mine." Geraldine set her things down and took a seat. The citrus scent of her hand lotion wafted across the table. "What's your plan?" "To change the structure, remove them entirely. I want to protect what I have and who I leave it to." Geraldine gave a short nod. "You know, I've got copies of the old versions, just in case they try anything stupid later." "I'm counting on that." A knock sounded at the front door, soft, uncertain. Marian stood slowly, bones cracking in protest. When she opened it, Lily stood there, eyes lowered, holding a paper bag from the cafe 2 blocks over. "I brought you a muffin, the peanut butter one. They had it this morning." Marian opened the screen and stepped aside. "That's a rare find." "I thought maybe you hadn't eaten," Lily said, moving past her and setting the bag on the kitchen counter. Her eyes darted toward the open folder. "Is that your will?" "It was," Marian said. Lily sat, backpack still slung over one shoulder. "I saw the bracelet post," she added. "Didn't know what they'd said to you before that. I didn't think they'd—" She trailed off. "You're not them," Marian said simply. "You notice. That's more than they've done in months." "I'm sorry." "I know." Silence fell, but it wasn't heavy, just honest. Geraldine reached across and opened the cabinet drawer again, pulling out a smaller folder and a business card. "You still have that attorney, the sharp one?" Marian nodded. "Yates, Harlan Yates. I kept his number." Geraldine slid the folder toward her. "Then I'd say it's time." Marian reached for the phone on the wall, dialed without looking. The buttons were worn smooth from years of use. 2 rings, then a voice answered. "Yates." "This is Marian Pierce," she said, her voice calm, but with a current of something new underneath. "I'm ready to change everything." Across the room, Lily looked up. Geraldine leaned back in her chair, satisfied. The pen was still on the table, resting next to the folder. Ink uncapped, waiting. The law office didn't try to impress. No fake ficus in the corner, no wall diplomas or inspirational quotes. Just white walls, gray carpet, and the sterile hum of printers somewhere beyond a closed door. It was quiet in the way banks used to be, clinical, indifferent. Marian Pierce sat with her hands folded over her purse. Her nails were trimmed short, unpainted. Beside her, Geraldine adjusted the strap on her tote bag and glanced around like she was mentally checking for exits. A woman in a pressed button-down called out, "Mrs. Pierce?" and gestured them in. Harlan Yates's office was as bare as the waiting room, no decor, no clutter. Just a brushed steel desk, 2 visitor chairs, and a pair of monitors glowing against the pale wall. The man behind the desk didn't rise. He simply gestured toward the chairs. "Mrs. Pierce, Ms. Hoyt," he said. His voice was sharp, practiced, and utterly devoid of warmth. "Let's begin." Marian sat. Geraldine followed. "I need to restructure my estate," Marian said plainly. "Immediately." Harlan clicked his pen open and poised it over a legal pad. "On what grounds?" "Neglect." Marian's voice didn't waver. Sustained, deliberate, dressed in polite phrases and deflected responsibilities. Harlan looked up, but she wasn't finished. "They don't scream or slam doors," she said. "They just let things slide until something breaks, like a refill, or trust." Geraldine placed a thick navy blue binder on the table with a soft thump. Its label was handwritten in careful block letters. Neglect, June through August. Harlan didn't reach for it. "Let's talk structure first." Marian nodded. "I want a living trust. Irrevocable, not amendable." "I've read enough to know the language I need." Harlan wrote something quickly. "Who are you removing?" "My son, Colin Pierce. His wife, Tessa Pierce." "Completely?" "Yes." "Executor?" "I want co-trustees. Geraldine and yourself." Harlan paused, adjusted his glasses, and looked at Marian directly. "Disinheriting family, especially adult children, often leads to challenges. You understand that?" Marian folded her hands in her lap. "That's why I'm not just updating my will. I'm rewriting the map. No access. No ambiguity." "And the beneficiary?" "My granddaughter, Lily Pierce." Harlan's eyes flicked to Geraldine, then back to Marian. "She's a minor?" 17, Geraldine answered. 18 in March. "She'll be the sole beneficiary," Marian confirmed. "But the funds should release in stages. I don't want to hand her a fortune all at once." Harlan nodded. "We'll write it as staggered disbursements, education, living expenses, and major needs. Then a full release at 25, unless she requests otherwise." He scribbled quickly across the legal pad. "A statement of cause will help. It's not legally required, but in cases of total exclusion, it's preventative medicine." "Include it," Marian said. "She's got documentation," Geraldine added, pushing the binder forward. "You'll find your cause in there." Now Harlan opened it. Inside were tabs, texts, medical, social media, missed refills, screenshots, statements. The organization was clinical. Every tab had a paperclip, every page a timestamp. "I have pharmacy records," Marian said. Messages from Colin where he declines to pick up medications. A photo Tessa posted of the bracelet. Same day my refill was left unclaimed. You'll see the receipt on the next page. "You printed a social media post?" Harlan asked. "I don't use social media," Marian replied, "but I know how to print." He let out something that could have been a dry laugh, or maybe just breath through his nose. "You're not doing this from anger," Harlan said. "That's rare." "No," Marian said. "I'm doing this with clarity. That's more permanent." Harlan closed the binder slowly and set it to the side. "You've made my part easy. We'll move everything, house, accounts, annuities, into the trust. I want it certified and recorded," she added, "so there's no surprise later." He nodded once. "We'll file with the county once everything is signed and notarized." Then he leaned back slightly, pen still in hand. "Is this all the documentation?" Marian met his eyes, then reached into her handbag and pulled out a second folder. This one was thinner, labeled, "Tessa, Budget Priorities." "I thought this might help with the context," she said. "You'll find her jewelry spreadsheet in the back." Harlan took the folder, his lips tightening just slightly. "Let's get to work," he said. Marian sat at the dining table with a plastic folder box cracked open beside her. Everything smelled faintly of citrus cleaner and printer ink. Stacks of paper formed tidy rows, one for messages, one for pharmacy records, one for screenshots. And in front of her, Geraldine was sorting through each piece like she was preparing to argue a case in front of a grand jury. Date stamp every page, Geraldine said, eyes narrowed behind her smudged glasses. No one argues with a timeline. Marian slid a post-it pad closer. Put bracelet 1 on the May folder. That was the one she wore to that lunch spot in Murrieta. Geraldine nodded. Right. Colin declined the refill that same morning. They'd been at it for hours. Paper clips, red tabs, color-coded dividers. Marian didn't do chaos. Everything had to be traceable. If it wasn't organized, it didn't exist. Geraldine squinted at her printout of an Instagram story. Why do people post this crap anyway? Validation, Marian said, stapling 2 screenshots together. And arrogance. One image showed Tessa's hand wrapped around a wine glass, her wrist glinting with new stones. In the caption, a string of hashtags sparkled like the diamonds. Love him? Grateful wife. Hats spoiled in silver. The post was dated the same week Marian had asked Colin for help and been told to wait till next month. Next to that, a printout of Colin's text reply. Not in the budget right now. Marian paperclipped them together. Same day, time-stamped, 6 hours apart. Geraldine gave a short grunt of approval and moved on to the pharmacy file. Here, this one, June 3rd. They called twice. No pickup. The tech added a note. She handed Marian the page, a printout from the local Rite Aid system. Marian traced the underlined part with her fingertip. Patient contacted. RX unclaimed. Spoke with family member. Advised to follow up. No response. She added it to the tab labeled June Medical Neglect. From the kitchen, the oven timer beeped, but neither woman moved. In the corner, Lily sat quietly with her laptop open. She'd been there all afternoon. No phone, no earbuds, just silence. Eventually, she stood, walked over, and placed a sealed envelope on top of the evidence pile. What's this? Marian asked. A statement, Lily said. For the file. You don't have to open it. But if they ever say I didn't notice or I didn't care, you'll have it. Marian looked at her granddaughter. You sure? Lily nodded once. I saw what they did. And didn't do. Marian picked up the envelope and slid it gently into the folder marked Personal Statements. The house was quiet, even the air still. A neighbor's dog barked once in the distance, then went silent again. Geraldine closed the last folder with a solid snap. You've got enough here to sink a yacht. I don't want revenge, Marian said. I want protection. For Lily, for what I've built. Geraldine snorted. You want accountability? And that's rarer than diamonds. By late afternoon, Harlan received the binder, hand-delivered. He didn't ask questions, just flipped through the tabs while Marian waited silently across from him. After 30 pages, he set the file down. It's enough, he said. We'll start filing today. He pulled out a form, already half completed. First draft of the trust includes all asset transfers, property, bank accounts, annuities, disbursements to Lily in staggered releases. Geraldine and I are locked as co-trustees. And the exclusion? Marian asked. He tapped the tab labeled Neglect with a pen. This becomes the foundation. If they challenge the trust, we file the binder alongside. The case will collapse before it starts. Good, she said. The forms were signed, initialed, copied, and sealed. The first pieces of her future, her real future, were no longer in theory. That evening, Marian sat in her armchair with a mug of peppermint tea. The television off, the house dim, except for the glow of a side lamp. She had just settled into the quiet when her phone buzzed beside her. Colin, we're planning a family trip next month. Need to talk about your house. Marian didn't reply. She opened a fresh file folder instead, labeled it August, Pressure Tactics. The day Marian signed everything away from her son, the skies over Temecula were painfully clear. The kind of blue that looks painted on, unearned, Like the weather didn't get the memo. She drove herself this time, her Buick cleaned the day before, windows rolled up, her handbag beside her like a quiet co-pilot. She arrived 10 minutes early. Harlan's office looked the same, bland, severe, and humming with quiet efficiency. The receptionist gave her a neutral nod, already expecting her. Geraldine was waiting in one of the guest chairs, a manila folder on her lap, and a cup of coffee untouched beside her. "No traffic?" Geraldine asked, standing. "Only in my head," Marian replied. They followed the same hallway back to Harlan's office. As they entered, the sharp scent of copier paper and espresso clung to the air. Harlan stood this time. He didn't offer a handshake, just motioned to the document tray on his desk, where two thick stacks of paper were perfectly aligned beneath a notary seal. "It's ready," he said. "This is the final draft. Everything transfers immediately upon your signature." Marian sat slowly, then pulled her reading glasses from her bag. "Walk me through it. One last time." Harlan didn't flinch. "Real property, your house on Mesa Verde, is placed into the trust. Savings, retirement accounts, annuities, and CDs have all been retitled. Stocks were liquidated and moved into the trust's cash account for simplified disbursement." He flipped a page. "Primary beneficiary, Lily Pierce. Funds to be released in stages. First at 18, next at 21, then full release at 25. Emergency requests are subject to trustee approval." He nodded at Geraldine. "Co-trustees, Ms. Hoyt and myself." Marian didn't interrupt, just listened with both hands folded atop her purse. Harlan turned to the second document. "This is the statement of cause. It's not legally binding, but it explains the rationale for exclusion. It's part of the trust record." He read it aloud. "Due to a documented and repeated pattern of medical neglect, refusal to assist with urgent prescriptions, and redirection of financial support toward luxury goods and personal gain, I, Marian Pierce, am disinheriting Colin Pierce and Tessa Pierce from my estate in full." He paused, looking at her. "This will be on file. If challenged, it becomes part of the evidentiary defense." Marian leaned forward slightly, her voice low but clear. "Good. I want the silence to have a record." She opened her pen. It was an old silver Parker, the one she used for holiday cards and condolence notes. With calm precision, she signed every page, every initial line, her hand steady as glass. Geraldine and the notary witnessed. Page after page disappeared under her signature. When it was done, Harlan bound the trust in a black folder with metal corners and slid it gently across the table toward her. "You've just made it unbreakable," he said. Marian placed her hand over it. She didn't smile. "It's not revenge," she said. "It's accounting." The drive home was slower. She took the long way, past the vineyards and the new housing development Colin once pitched her on as a good downsizing option. A row of model homes glittered under construction flags, too bright, too fast. Her phone buzzed as she pulled into her driveway. Voicemail. Colin. She waited until she was seated in her armchair before pressing play. "Hey, Mom. We've been thinking about consolidating your accounts. Just to simplify everything, you know? Maybe sit down and talk through where everything is. See how we can help manage things better as a family. Anyway, let me know when you're free." His voice was light, measured, almost cheerful. It always was when he wanted access. Marian didn't answer. She reached for her folder, slid it into the fireproof box under the hall cabinet, and turned the key. Then she picked up a new sheet of printer paper and wrote in her ledger. August 17th, trust finalized, assets moved. Call from Colin Re, consolidation. Pattern holding, no response needed. Her thumb tapped forward, then share. She sent the voicemail to Harlan with a brief subject line. "More pressure, your move." 20 minutes later, he replied. "Revocation already in process. Need signatures. You available today?" She was. By afternoon, Marian sat at Harlan's desk again, signing with the same steady pen. The document in front of her bore an imposing title, Revocation of durable financial power of attorney. She read it twice, then once more for Lily's sake. Who's listed as the new agents? She asked. Harlan flipped the page. Primary, Geraldine Hoyt. Secondary and legal, myself. Marian nodded. Perfect. Anyone else touches my accounts, they'll need a court order. And they won't get one, Harlan replied. As he sealed the file, Marian removed her checkbook from her purse. The cover was worn, the ink fading. A habit she hadn't broken since the 80s. Time to move the last of it, she said. Back at the house, Geraldine stood over the kitchen island, holding a small metal box in one hand and a drill in the other. You're really putting a lock on your bank drawer? Lily asked, peeking in from the living room. I'm doing more than that, Geraldine said. This box bolts in. They can snoop, but they can't touch. Marian passed by with her folder in hand. Once the last check clears, we close the old account. No access, no paper trail. Lily hesitated, then stepped closer. Dad asked me something weird. Marian paused. He asked if you still use physical checks. Said he was just curious about how you track stuff. Marian exchanged a look with Geraldine. That's not curiosity, Geraldine muttered. That's pre-theft research. Marian exhaled through her nose and opened her laptop. The screen glowed softly in the fading light. She logged into her bank portal and moved the remaining funds, checking, savings, all of it, into the trust-linked account Harlan had helped her set up. No joint holders, no visibility. Everything encrypted, every password changed. Lily sat on the arm of the couch, watching. They're going to freak out when they realize you're invisible. Let them, Marian said. I lived through the Cold War. I can survive entitled children. From the kitchen, Geraldine called out, This box is rated fireproof. Keeps records safe in case they ever get nosy with a crowbar. They won't find the combination, Marian said. Geraldine smiled. I didn't say I'd be the one hiding it. That night, the house was quiet again. Cicadas hummed in the heat, and a skunk somewhere nearby left a faint bitter trace in the air. Marian poured herself a glass of cranberry juice, her new compromise after cutting sugary sodas, and sat in the corner armchair with her phone. She wasn't going to check Tessa's socials. She didn't follow her. But Lily did, and sometimes the algorithm didn't know who not to show. At 10:17 p.m., a post lit up her screen. A story, only 15 seconds. Tessa's wrist again, this time draped across a cream leather clutch. The tennis bracelet sparkled under a low restaurant light. Text floated across the screen, white and smug. Money flows where love goes. Grateful wife, best life. The music in the background was soft jazz, muted enough not to get flagged. But Marian didn't hear it. Her eyes had already moved to the timestamp. Same day Colin left the voicemail. Same pattern, same playbook. She didn't screenshot it. Geraldine would, eventually. Instead, Marian opened a new sheet in her ledger, dated it, and wrote in blue ink, Sept 3, Tessa posts new jewelry. Colin called about simplifying accounts. Suggests check access. Trust balance, secured. Response, none. She closed the book, turned out the light, and whispered into the dark. Let them keep posting. I'll keep recording. Marian didn't need to see every post. She already knew the rhythm, shiny wrist, glowing caption, just enough polish to hide the rot. But what struck her now wasn't the jewelry. It was the precision. Every public sparkle came just after a private withdrawal. This time was no different. Geraldine, already expecting it, walked in holding her phone like evidence. She's at it again, she muttered. Same wrist, same damn bracelet. New caption, though. Marian didn't even ask what it said. She simply opened her binder and flipped to the next empty divider. Geraldine dropped the printed screenshot onto the table, her voice dry. Want me to log it? I'll do it, Marian said, taking the photo. You file the last one under June, right? Bracelet I, June 3rd. This one's July 15th. Marian wrote in crisp black ink. Bracelet 2, July 15th. Post captured by witness. Correlates with July 13th voicemail regarding simplifying finances. She slipped it into a labeled sleeve and slid the entire sheet into a red tabbed folder. July bracelet 2. It was getting easier, memorizing their behavior, matching digital performances to real-world cruelty. Each post, each ignored refill, each veiled offer to help, landed like a drop in a measuring cup. Marian just waited for it to overflow. 3 days later, she sat across from Harlan again, watching him leaf through the newest additions to the binder. "It builds a pattern," he said, flipping the sheet with the flick of a gloved hand. "Every post matches a moment they pulled away. No emotion, just data." "Let them tell their story," Marian replied. "I'm just footnoting the truth." He looked up. "Have you considered adding this to your statement of cause?" "I'm considering something else," she said, and pulled a cream envelope from her purse. He unfolded it. Inside was the draft of her obituary. It mentioned Lily. It mentioned Marian's work at the women's shelter, her volunteer tax prep years, her garden club memberships, and the pier she loved walking in Oceanside before her knees gave out. But Colin and Tessa's names were absent. Harlan read it once, then nodded. Approved. That night, Lily poked her head into the kitchen while Marian was organizing the grocery list. "They're planning your birthday," she said. Marian looked up. "Are they?" "At a winery. Not really for you. It's more like a post about you. No food, no RSVP, just hashtags. Something about toasting strong women." Marian's face didn't flinch. "Did they choose the winery with the $22 tastings and no seating?" "Probably." Geraldine walked in with a brown paper bag of lemons and 2 loaves of sourdough. "We'll celebrate elsewhere, with groceries and dignity." "I got lemon cake mix," Lily said. "I remembered it was your favorite." "It is," Marian replied, "especially when people actually intend to serve it." They all smiled, brief, honest, unspoken. Later, alone, Marian sat down at her desk. The drawer to her filing cabinet was open, tabs and folders arranged with the precision of a bank audit. She flipped to July's final page and began a new log entry. July 17th, winery post for Mom's birthday. No invite, no meal. Performative. Her pen hovered. Then her phone buzzed on the desk beside her. She glanced at the screen. Colin, have you thought about downsizing? Smaller home, less hassle. We could help with the whole process. No greeting, no, "How are you?" Just strategy dressed as concern. She stared at it for a moment, then tapped out 3 words. "Marian. Not interested. Thanks." She hit send. No punctuation beyond the period. No invitation to follow up. No apology for her decisiveness. But she knew Colin. That wouldn't be the end of it. An hour later, her phone buzzed again. "Colin, totally understand. We just want to make things easier for you. We've talked to a realtor friend. He could give you a no-commitment evaluation if you're open to it. Could help with timelines." There it was, the next push. Slick, polite, well-dressed interference. Marian didn't respond this time. She opened her email, attached a screenshot of the message, and sent it directly to Harlan with the subject line, "New attempt at estate interference." By late afternoon, Geraldine arrived with a small canvas bag of produce and a stack of legal envelopes. She tossed one onto the table with a satisfying slap. "Fresh from Harlan's printer," she said. "I delivered the other copy myself. Slipped it right into their metal mailbox before Tessa even noticed me." Marian flipped open the envelope. Across the top, bold and clear, "Cease and desist. Unauthorized interference in real property and estate affairs. Client. Marian Pierce issued to Colin Pierce." She read the language slowly, savoring the exactness of it. Harlan hadn't left a crack. Cease all discussion of sale, transfer, or assistance related to property held by the client, effective immediately. She folded the letter and filed it beneath the tab marked August Legal Barriers. The next morning, Marion sat at her writing desk with a black pen and her funeral directive file spread out in front of her. The air was cool and still, broken only by the tick of the wall clock and the faint hum of the fridge. She pulled the old directive from the folder, one that had once listed Colin as point of contact, Tessa as backup, and tore it in half with quiet precision. A fresh form sat underneath. Under authorized parties, she wrote, Primary, Geraldine Hoyt. Secondary, Lily Pierce. She checked the box that read, No access granted to disinherited parties. She added a personal clause in her own handwriting. No digital memorials, services, or statements may be issued by excluded individuals. No performance, no rewriting, no soft-lit grief from people who had made her invisible while she lived. She signed it, dated it, filed it. Lily arrived around lunchtime, carrying a brown bag from the sandwich shop and an envelope of printed scholarship forms. She looked tired, like she was walking around with a secret too heavy for 17. They're saying things about you, she said quietly, unwrapping her sandwich. To people, Dad said he's concerned that you're making choices too fast, that maybe you're slipping. Marion folded her napkin slowly. Slipping? Lily looked up. It's code for getting old, for not thinking clearly, but they're planting it like it's fact. Marion didn't flinch. She reached for her ledger, flipped to a fresh page, and began writing in clean strokes. Aug 6, verbal insinuations of mental decline. Source, Colin Pierce. Intent, established doubt, no merit. Then she looked at Lily. I'm not slipping, she said. I'm documenting. Lily didn't speak. She just handed Marion a highlighter and nodded. That night the house was calm, lights low, the sound of a neighbor's sprinkler hissing faintly through the open kitchen window. Marion checked her email before bed. A new message sat at the top of her inbox. From Teresa R., Pharmacy Manager, Rancho Parkway. Right aid subject, refill still unclaimed, Marion Pierce. Hello, Mrs. Pierce. We noticed your insulin refill remains unclaimed. This is the third reminder. Please let us know if you'd like us to hold, refill, or cancel. Teresa R. PharmD. She read the date. Same week as the downsizing text. Same silence. She printed the email, slid it into her medical neglect file, and labeled the entry. Aug 7. Prescription ignored again. Third reminder, pattern intact. She closed the drawer and turned off the light. They thought they were pushing her out of her own life. She was filing them out of hers. Marion stood over the printer, watching each page feed out with slow, deliberate clicks. The air smelled like warm toner and determination. Line by line, the proof materialized. Dates, refill notices, timestamps. It wasn't speculation, it wasn't memory, it was record. 3 consecutive months. 3 identical reminders. 3 unclaimed prescriptions. She gathered the stack, clipped it neatly, and slid it into a manila folder labeled Neglect. Script History. Harlan raised his eyebrows when she placed it on his desk later that morning. 3 months? He asked, flipping through the printouts. 3 skipped fills, 3 documented notifications, 2 from the pharmacy, 1 from the doctor's portal. Geraldine, seated beside Marion with a notebook in her lap, added, And I watched her crash after everyone. Weakness, blurred vision, sweats. She told no one, but I saw. Harlan looked up. We can file this. You can do more than that, Marion said, her voice flat. You can make it part of the record. Trust certification. Permanent entry. He nodded slowly. We'll include it in the evidentiary appendix. The clearer the pattern, the harder it is to contest. You've essentially built a legal autopsy of their carelessness. Geraldine reached into her bag and pulled out a typed sheet. I already drafted my statement. Date stamped, signed. Ready to notarize. She slid it across the table. Witness affidavit, Geraldine Hoyt. Observed symptoms of hypoglycemia on 3 separate occasions after reported prescription denial. Episodes included visible shaking, unsteadiness, and lightheadedness. No evidence of follow-up care from family members present at the time. Harlan read it in silence, then placed it into the growing binder behind the trust summary and statement of cause. Marian sat perfectly still, her hands resting atop her purse. "This isn't about resentment," she said. "This is about structure. They want to pretend it didn't happen. I want it filed where no one can erase it." Later that afternoon, Lily arrived with a grocery bag and a pair of new notebooks. "I got you more graph paper," she said, placing them on the kitchen table. "You like those lines straight." Marian nodded her thanks, eyes drifting briefly to the window where late sunlight flickered across the blinds. Lily hesitated before sitting. "Dad said something yesterday." Marian didn't speak, just waited. "He said you've always been dramatic, that you're spinning things." Marian's lips pressed into a line, then softened. "Then let this be my final act," she said, "and let it be boring, airtight, and permanent." Lily blinked, a tiny laugh escaping despite herself. "You're a lot of things. Boring isn't one of them." Marian opened the binder again, slid in the new affidavit, and checked off a line in her ledger titled Medical Pattern Certified. 2 days later, Harlan filed the trust certification with the county. The document was embossed, barcoded, and logged into public record. Uneditable, unchallenged, fully executed. Every asset had been moved, every exemption explained, every choice documented, and for the first time in months, Marian exhaled like she meant it. It was done. She didn't expect to see him on the porch. The doorbell rang mid-morning, 3 short bursts that didn't belong to any delivery driver. She opened the front door just enough to see Colin standing there in a pressed button-down, holding a thick envelope. His smile was small, rehearsed, and it didn't reach his eyes. "Hey, Mom," he said. "Didn't want to bother, just had some things I thought we could talk through." Marian said nothing. Colin held up the envelope. "We've been thinking, Tessa and I, it might be smart to simplify some of your accounts. Merge a few things, protect your cash flow. I brought some paperwork. Just outlines. Nothing binding." She looked at the envelope but didn't take it. "I've already handled all necessary changes," she said evenly. He blinked. "Well, sure, but if we're talking about longer term, I'm not." She stepped back, not slamming the door, just closing it with the kind of finality that didn't need volume. Colin remained on the porch for a second longer, then tucked the envelope against his side and walked back to his car, slow, calculating. Inside, Marian walked to her desk, opened her ledger, and wrote, Aug 9, Colin arrived in person. Attempted access through financial simplification, documented and denied. Then she clicked her pen shut and waited. The refill record came out of the printer in sharp, inked precision, page after page of dates, alerts, and failure notices. The paper was still warm when Marian stapled the final sheet, then placed it on the dining table beside her ledger. Each skipped fill was logged with its own timestamp. May, June, July, all unclaimed. All after requests, all following some new post or financial suggestion. She didn't add commentary. The paper spoke louder than outrage. When Geraldine arrived, Marian handed her the file. That's all 3 months, documented, she said. Geraldine skimmed it, then gave a slow nod. Let's take it in. At Harlan's office, the light was dimmer than usual, the afternoon sun casting faint stripes across the blinds. Harlan held the refill report like it was evidence in a criminal case, which, in its own way, it was. 3 separate cycles, he said. All ignored? Every one. He turned a few pages, tapping a finger on the refill reminders and timestamps. And each refusal came after financial contact. Yes. He opened the large black binder labeled Trust, Pierce, Certified, flipped to the back, and slid the report into a section labeled Evidentiary Packet, Health Neglect. Once this is certified with the county, he said, it becomes part of the permanent trust file. Contests will have to acknowledge this pattern, and they won't win. Geraldine pulled a folder from her purse and placed a typed page on the desk. I drafted a witness affidavit, she said, voice clipped. Symptoms observed. Dated. Signed. Harlan read aloud. Observed hypoglycemic symptoms on multiple occasions. Disorientation, tremors, unsteadiness. Episodes followed delayed or unclaimed prescriptions. Family members informed but did not respond. Marion under my direct care at time of each event. Harlan nodded. We'll notarize this today. It gets filed behind the refill history. He made a notation in the trust ledger, added a tab, and sealed the section shut. Marion sat silent through it all, alert, composed, methodical. The room smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and hot toner. She remembered working in a clinic years ago, watching nurses organize charts by last breath. This felt no different. That evening, back at the house, Marion stood by the sink drying dishes when Lily walked in, holding a manila envelope of community college brochures. Her shoulders were tight, her expression unsure. They're talking again, she said, sliding onto a kitchen stool. About you. Marion didn't turn around. What now? Dad told Aunt Cassie you've always been dramatic, that this isn't new, that you're acting out like you always do when things don't go your way. Marion turned then, slowly. Dramatic, she repeated. Lily nodded. He's rewriting it. Marion dried her hands, then walked to her ledger. She flipped to the page labeled Medical Timeline and made a note. Verbal reframing of events by Colin. Dismissed seriousness of medical neglect. Suggested overreaction as motive. Then she looked at Lily. Then let this be my final act, she said calmly. One with footnotes, receipts, and no applause. Lily didn't smile, but her eyes held something like pride. The next morning, Harlan filed the full trust certification packet with the Riverside County Recorder's Office. Every asset, every exclusion, every medical omission documented. The pages were sealed with an official notary stamp and indexed under Marion's trust name. The binder that returned to Marion's cabinet now held over 100 pages of legal insulation, airtight, enforceable, and permanent. Marion placed it behind the funeral directive and shut the drawer without ceremony. She was preparing tea when the knock came. 3 short, purposeful raps on the door. Marion glanced through the peephole. Colin. He wore a navy button-down, sleeves rolled, sunglasses hooked at the collar. In his hand was a folder thick with forms. She opened the door just enough to let air pass. Hi, Mom, he said with a quick smile. Didn't want to just text. Thought we could sit down and talk about some financial options. Got a few ideas to simplify things. Merge some accounts. Maybe streamline bills. Just suggestions. Nothing binding. He lifted the folder slightly. Marion didn't move. She didn't speak. She simply looked at him and waited. Colin laid out the folder on the dining table like he was presenting options, not intentions. The forms were clipped neatly, organized in plastic sleeves. Joint account proposal, one read. Another. Authorization for financial monitoring. It's not control, he said, voice smooth as butter spread too thin. It's just shared visibility, streamlining in case something happens. Marion didn't sit. She looked down at the forms like they were exhibit pieces in a crime scene. Everything's already where it belongs, she said. Her voice was steady, but the silence that followed was louder. Colin didn't flinch. We're just trying to help. Tessa even made a chart. He flipped open a final page. Color-coded rows, icons, highlighted boxes. She called it a care matrix, he added. Just a way to track your medications, bills, appointments. Marion's eyes scanned the spreadsheet, and something caught. A column labeled Holiday Gifting, Appreciation Budget. Subheading, Emotional Investment, Material Symbolism. And beneath it, Tessa's wish list, necklace, spa package, phone upgrade. Marion closed the folder herself, without asking permission. Then she walked to her desk, pulled out her binder, and inserted the spreadsheet under a new tab labeled Tessa Budget Priorities. Later that evening, Geraldine arrived just as the sun was turning the blinds into stripes of gold and shadow. Marion handed her the care matrix without a word. Geraldine sat, read through it, and snorted. They're leaving a breadcrumb trail to nowhere. She flipped the page. These aren't care plans. They're cash funnels with perfume. Marion nodded once and wrote in her ledger. Attempted financial merge, cloaked as care. Spreadsheet includes material wish list. Intent, asset proximity. Lily came by after dinner, wearing one of Peter's old sweatshirts and carrying 2 cups of peppermint tea. They're getting desperate, she said, passing Marion her cup. Dad's been calling Aunt Cassie, saying you're difficult lately, that you don't understand how much easier life could be if you let people help. Marion didn't respond at first. She was watching the tea swirl, the steam rising like something exhaled from deeper inside. They think control equals care, she said at last. Lily looked toward the ledger on the table. What'll they do when they find out, she asked. Marion didn't blink. We'll document that too. The next morning, the mailbox held a new envelope, off-white, legal-sized, with a return address for a firm Marion hadn't seen before. She brought it inside, sliced it open with her letter opener, and pulled out the document. Wellness and Estate Concern. Marion Pierce from Cassie Landon, Esquire. On behalf of concerned family members. Marion's eyes scanned the letter, language couched in concern but sharp underneath. Reached out with hesitation, as your well-being and decision-making capacity may be compromised. Family members have expressed concern regarding changes to financial arrangements and estate oversight. If a review of stability and cognitive clarity could be completed, it would provide relief to all parties. She read the letter twice. Then she walked it to the filing cabinet, opened a fresh folder, and labeled it Cassie False Narrative Launch. As she filed it, the phone rang. Once, twice, no voicemail. Marion didn't answer, but she smiled faintly. They were no longer being subtle. They were laying groundwork for something bigger, something uglier, and she had just documented the first brick. Marion sat in the waiting room of Dr. Keller's office, her purse tucked beneath her chair, her back straight against the vinyl cushion. She wasn't nervous. She was documenting, and this would be the cleanest entry yet. The receptionist called her name. She stood without hesitation. Dr. Keller wore his usual cardigan, the one with suede elbow patches and pens that clicked too easily. He greeted her with a professional nod, no warmth, no condescension. So, he said, unfolding the evaluation form, "You're here for cognitive clearance? I'm here because my clarity's been challenged by people who never asked if I needed help in the first place." He raised a brow, but didn't ask more. The test began. He moved briskly. Time, place, recall, logic, word chains, scenario planning, financial decision simulations. Imagine you're managing monthly expenses on a fixed income. I do. Keller smiled thinly. Then you already understand the premise. 20 minutes passed in clinical rhythm. Marion answered everything, firmly, precisely. No second-guessing, no pauses. When it was done, he reviewed her responses silently, then leaned back in his chair. "There's no sign of decline," he said. "In fact, your executive functioning is sharper than average for your age bracket. I'll certify it in writing." "I'd like 2 copies," Marion said. "Done." By noon the next day, 1 copy was filed in her trust portfolio. The other was overnighted to Harlan, who inserted it behind the statement of costs. At 9:41 a.m., he sent a response to Cassie Landon's office. "We received your inquiry regarding Marion Pierce's mental fitness. A licensed physician has certified full cognitive capacity. If you choose to escalate, we are prepared to respond with full legal backing. Otherwise, we suggest this narrative be withdrawn permanently." He attached the report, notarized. Then he waited. There was no reply, no clarification, no retraction, just the kind of silence that feels like retreat. Marion made one more move that afternoon. She opened the drawer containing her health directives and pulled out the old medical power of attorney form, the one drafted 5 years ago when things still felt repairable. Tessa's name was there, neatly printed in black ink. Marian stared at it for 3 seconds. Then she struck a diagonal line through it and wrote beneath, "Revoked due to pattern of disregard, negligence, and external manipulation. Permanently excluded." She initialed and dated it, then reprinted the form with updated designations. Geraldine as primary, Lily as alternate. The ink dried clean. Lily arrived around lunchtime with a brown paper bag and a side smile. "I hope you didn't already eat," she said, placing the bag on the table. "I ordered from the deli, egg salad, rye toast, and a peach scone. You're hard to surprise." Marian opened the lid of the sandwich container and inhaled. "I'm not hard to please," she said. "Simple, reliable, beautiful." Lily smiled, easing into the chair across from her. "That's you in 3 words. "No," Marian replied, unfolding a napkin. "That's what makes a person safe to trust." They ate quietly, both knowing things had shifted, but not between them. Later that evening, Marian was trimming the herbs by her kitchen window when a sharp vibration lit up her phone. She checked the screen, a notification from Lily's public keyword alerts. "Tessa Pierce official has made a post." Marian tapped. The image was filtered and soft, a photo of a wine glass, manicured fingers, a blurred patio in the background, but the caption was sharp enough to cut. "Elder wealth hoarding is real. Watch your parents. Just because they're quiet doesn't mean they're fair. Generational greed. Family first, transparency matters." Marian stared at the screen. She didn't reply, didn't save it, didn't forward it to Harlan. She simply turned off the phone, stepped outside, and clipped the last sprig of rosemary under the waning light. Let them watch. Tessa had typed it out like it was a public service announcement, all dressed up in hashtags and blurry wine glass aesthetics. But what Tessa hadn't counted on was that Marian could use silence as a weapon and exposure as a scalpel. She tapped the screen, hovered for half a second, then hit repost. No hashtags, no filters, just one line typed beneath the image. "Ask who paid for her bracelet." Then she put the phone down. By the time Marian boiled water for tea, the comments were already rolling in, some subtle, some venomous, some oblivious. Geraldine called it within the hour. "It's picking up steam," she said. "Lily and I are grabbing screenshots. Every reply, every reaction, time-stamped and foldered." Marian opened the window above the sink. The sound of distant sprinklers crackled across the neighborhood. The afternoon smelled like trimmed hedges and warm asphalt. "They can debate intentions," Marian said, "but they can't debate receipts." Lily sent over a spreadsheet labeled Response Audit, Post 12. It tracked sentiment, commenter relationships, and which users followed both Marian and Tessa. "I didn't even tag her," Marian muttered, almost to herself. "You didn't have to," Geraldine replied. Truth sticks louder than shade. By that evening, Marian's inbox was silent. No calls from Colin, no texts from Tessa. Cassie didn't post a follow-up, no clarifying statements, no defensive walkbacks. Just stillness. Harlan's voice came through the speakerphone later that night, calm and stripped of sentiment. "You've already won the court of permanence. Let them play in the court of perception." "What about legal consequences?" Marian asked. He paused. "Not unless they keep poking. We keep our hands clean. Let it burn quietly. Publicly, we stay silent." Marian exhaled through her nose, the kind of breath that clears, not vents. "I'm sealing everything," she said. "It's time." She took her time with it. One final check. The trust binder was reviewed line by line. Geraldine had proofed the appendix. Lily had reviewed the sealed letters. Every page was in order, from the notarized disinheritance to the clause excluding Colin and Tessa from funeral access. Marian picked up the last envelope. Cream-colored, heavyweight. Inside it, her final letter to both of them. Not angry, not emotional, just the truth. Neglect is not measured by volume, but by precision. I asked little. You offered less. This was not vengeance. This was calibration. She sealed it shut, stamped it, and placed it in the file marked Delivery upon Notice of Death, Private. Then she clicked the gold clasp on the trust binder and slid it into the fireproof drawer. It gave a soft thunk as it locked. Embossed on the front, The Pierce Trust, Certified Irrevocable. The next morning, the sun broke in stripes across the kitchen. Marian poured coffee, sat at the table, and opened her notebook. The yard outside smelled of rosemary and old rain. Lily arrived with muffins, blueberry still warm. You're trending, she said, not unkindly. Tessa hasn't posted again. I think she's waiting to see if you'll fold. I don't fold, Marian replied. I archive. They ate in silence until Geraldine tapped on the side door and entered without knocking. Nina just called, she said quietly, eyes sharp. She didn't want to alarm you. Marian set down her mug. What is it? There's been a welfare report. Anonymous. Geraldine's jaw clenched. Claim says you're showing signs of disorientation, possibly unsafe to live alone. Marian didn't move, didn't blink. She just reached for the ledger beside her and opened a fresh page. Let's start a new entry, she said. Anonymous moves, attempt 1. The knock on the door was quiet. Too quiet to startle, but too measured to ignore. 3 taps, a pause, then 1 more. Like someone checking for resistance, Marian wiped her hands on a dish towel and opened the door. A man stood there, dressed in a slate gray polo and khakis. His badge, clipped to a black lanyard, read, David Romero, Adult Protective Services. He smiled, professionally gentle. Ms. Pierce, I'm here in response to a report. Just a wellness check. Can I come in for a few minutes? Marian didn't flinch. You may, she said, stepping aside. Shoes off, please. I steam mop. Romero's eyes scanned the living room. Everything was clean, lived in, but tidy. Floral drapes, cool cross breeze. Glass bowl of sugar-free mints on the coffee table. Marian gestured toward the dining table. You can sit. I'll get the documents. He gave a courteous nod but didn't speak. He was observing. She returned with a manila folder and a leather-bound binder. She slid both across the table like cards laid down in a final hand. This, she said, tapping the binder, is my certified irrevocable trust. This, pointing to the folder, contains my cognitive evaluation, POAs, and a timeline of the accusations I've documented. And this, she added, opening a side drawer with the smoothness of someone prepared, is labeled malice. It includes screenshots, text logs, social media posts, and a letter from a family attorney suggesting cognitive decline. Romero blinked. She didn't look at him. She was already unsealing the folder. The visit lasted 37 minutes. He asked standard questions. Did she know the date? The president? Her medications? Marian answered each one with clipped, dry precision. Names, dosages, refill intervals. Then she handed him the physician's clearance, stamped and notarized. Romero read it. Twice. Have there been any recent falls, confusion, or issues with daily functioning? He asked. I meal prep every Sunday, pay bills on the 3rd, check my glucose twice daily, and do my own taxes. I've been called difficult, never disoriented. His mouth twitched, almost a smile. She watched his eyes as he scanned the malice file, each page marked, labeled, dated. Geraldine's witness affidavit, Lily's signed statement, a timeline of messages from Colin, overlapping with luxury purchases, missed pharmacy pickups, and pressure to merge accounts. Romero's pen slowed. He flipped to the final page, a printed screenshot of Tessa's Elder Wealth Hoarding is Real post. He exhaled, but not at her. At them. When he stood to leave, his tone was different, flatter, lower. Thank you, Miss Pierce. I have what I need. This should be cleared quickly. Define quickly. Less than 24 hours. We don't investigate documented retaliation. We log it. He paused at the door. I've worked in this department 12 years. You're the first person I've met who had a labeled file for malice. Marion didn't smile. I used to label recipes. This isn't so different. The case was marked unsubstantiated at 9:14 the next morning. Marion received the confirmation via certified letter with an internal note from Romero. Case closed. Caller not listed. File sealed. No follow-up recommended. Harlan filed the update under protective interference. Resolved. He also prepared a slander packet. Not to send, just to hold. The packet included legal thresholds, screenshots, and a pre-written cease and desist, should Colin or Tessa escalate. Marion reviewed it, then tucked it into the back of her cabinet. We keep it ready, she said, not open. That evening, the sky dimmed early behind the vineyards. Marion sat outside with Lily and Geraldine, folding linen napkins for no reason other than rhythm. Lily asked, "Do you think they'll stop?" "No," Geraldine said flatly. "They think they've earned something," Marion added. "They mistake intention for entitlement." She stood, smoothing the edge of the folded napkins. The breeze shifted, warm at first, then cool enough to draw goosebumps. Then her phone buzzed once. She checked the screen. Colin. Just one text. "You'll regret this in the end." Marion locked the phone. Then, very calmly, she lit the citronella candle beside her. It was the kind of morning that felt too quiet to be final, but Marion knew what today meant. Not for them, for her. Sunlight drifted in through the sheer curtains, warming the surface of her oak desk, where every paper was arranged with surgical precision. She didn't hesitate, didn't pause. Every motion was planned. She wasn't preparing for death. She was finalizing consequences. She opened the black folder marked End Directive, Pierce. A fresh signature page waited inside. At the top, Disposition of Trust and Personal Estate, Execution Protocol. Marion reached for her pen. She didn't just sign, she completed. She had made her decisions without anger, without drama. The documents read like a checklist, but Marion had embedded meaning in every name and every omission. Lily was now granted full execution authority. No co-signers, no delays. Upon Marion's death, the assets would move. House, accounts, savings, exactly where they were designed to go. To the one person who never asked. Marion had watched Lily grow from a curious toddler to a careful, watchful teenager. The kind who noticed things and remembered them. That mattered. Next came Geraldine, sharp as vinegar, slow to trust, but exacting as a scalpel. She was named oversight trustee for the property transfer. Her role was clear. Defend the boundaries. No contests allowed. If Colin or Tessa tried to challenge the trust, even once, Geraldine had standing authority to pursue injunctive relief and nullify any motion. Harlan made sure of it. He called it structural litigation deterrence. Marion called it justice you could file. In the final appendix, Marion placed one new addition, a folded printed receipt from Westbrook Jewelers. Tessa's name on the order, Colin's card on the payment. The purchase had happened 2 days after Marion's insulin refill was left unclaimed. She clipped it to a page labeled unrelated but revealing. She made no commentary, just left it there, quiet as fact, and heavier than any accusation. The formal exclusion letters were next. They'd been drafted weeks ago, but now they were dated, signed, and sealed. Each was simple, emotionless. This letter serves as official notice that you are not named as a beneficiary in my estate. Your removal was not abrupt, but cumulative. It reflects a sustained pattern of disregard, entitlement, and financial manipulation. This is not punitive. This is precise. 2 copies of each, one for personal delivery, one for legal file. Harlan had them certified that afternoon. Later, over tea, Geraldine glanced up from a folder she'd been reviewing. "They're still quiet." "They're waiting," Marion replied. "They think this is just anger." "It's not? It's documentation." Geraldine gave a single, knowing nod. I like that better than revenge. Marian smiled faintly. A regret is for people who don't document. The final step came in the form of a public record upload. The Pierce Trust, fully certified and irrevocable, was posted to the Riverside County Records Index under the Non-Contestable Trust Disclosure Clause. It didn't include the full balance. It didn't have to. It included property titles, trust dates and signatories, certification of exclusion clauses, disbursement conditions, oversight designations, a single, undisputable line. The following parties are permanently excluded from any distribution or legal claim: Colin Pierce, Tessa Pierce. The moment it went live, Geraldine confirmed the timestamp. It's official. Marian nodded, closing her laptop. Good. What now? Geraldine asked. Marian stood smooth and slow, her joints stiff but unbothered. She looked toward the open window where the wind shifted the edge of the curtain just slightly. Now we wait, not for them, for peace. She didn't send a message, didn't announce the posting. She didn't have to. People like Colin and Tessa watched for the very things they felt owed. And at 3:27 p.m., Lily's phone buzzed. She looked down, then up. They've seen it. Marian didn't look surprised. She turned her teacup once on the saucer. Let them sit with it. Then she stood, walked to the drawer, and slid the exclusion letters inside the safe. One final press of the latch. A muted click echoed through the room, and the chapter closed, without sound. The binder sat on Marian's lap like it weighed more than paper and ink. She didn't hold it tight, just firmly, like you do with something final. The garden around her buzzed with a late summer stillness, wind threading through rosemary bushes, the distant purr of a neighbor's lawnmower, the clink of ice against glass. She and Lily sat side by side on the bench under the patio awning. The sun hadn't fully burned through the morning clouds yet, casting soft shadows across the stone tiles. Lily glanced at the binder. You did this without a raised voice. Marian didn't answer right away. She opened the front cover, letting her hand hover over the pages like she was blessing them. Everything was in order: trust summary, exclusion letters, notarizations, final directives, tabbed and labeled, unflinchingly neat. A ledger, Marian said finally, speaks louder than yelling. From the porch, Geraldine stepped down the 2 shallow brick steps, carrying a tray of iced tea and lemon slices. Her sneakers crunched softly over gravel. No yelling, she echoed, setting the tray down. But they'll hear this for the rest of their lives. Lily reached for a glass, beads of condensation clinging to the sides. They've already heard it, she said. They just don't understand it yet. Marian slid a small laminated page from the back sleeve of the binder. She held it up to the sun. The light shone faintly through the printed receipt. Westbrook Jewelers. 2 days after her prescription was declined. She placed the receipt beside the trust certification in a black matte frame. Side by side. No caption. Just truth. Framed it? Geraldine asked. Some things are worth preserving. They won't be the ones hanging it. No, Marian said. But Lily will know where it was kept. The sound of a bird bath splashing made them turn. A scrub jay dunked itself once, then flew off, water glittering midair like silver dust. Marian exhaled slowly. Her hands, once prone to arthritis' shake, now moved with calm precision. The air smelled of lavender and lemon balm. This wasn't her retirement. It was her conclusion. Controlled, considered, unapologetic. They thought I'd go out with gratitude, Marian said. With forgiveness. That's not what this was. What was it then? Lily asked. An audit, she replied. Of love, of silence, of absence. The binder clicked shut. Final, soft, but unmistakable. Marian stood, just a little slower than she used to, and walked to the garden shelf beside the shed. From it, she lifted a shadow box frame and returned to the bench. Inside the frame was her insulin refill slip from June. Next to it, a printed photo of Tessa's wrist, caption blurred but visible. My husband gets me. Underneath, a typed line. 1 refill skipped. 1 bracelet purchased. 1 estate corrected. She placed the shadow box beside the framed trust certificate and nodded, satisfied. "You're really done," Geraldine said, not as a question. "I've never been more finished." They sat there, 3 generations of women, sipping cold tea while the last act of a quiet war settled into permanence. No appeals, no apologies, no revisions. A breeze lifted the corner of the garden journal Marion kept beside the tomatoes. The wind smelled faintly like mint and wet cement, clean, sharp American suburban air. Nothing foreign, nothing borrowed. Marion turned to Lily. "When people say family is everything, they forget to check what that family does when no one's watching." Lily nodded. "You watched. I documented. And now they'll read my will in silence." The sun crept higher, glinting off the frame glass. There were no shouts, no courtroom scenes, no dramatic confrontations, just signatures, seals, and silence. The kind that speaks forever. Marion leaned back against the bench, her breath even, her hands steady. In the distance, a delivery truck rolled by. The sound was dull and slow. Nothing urgent anymore. She didn't need to say it out loud, but she did. One last time, for herself. "My son refused to buy my medication, but bought his wife expensive jewelry. So I left them polished clean out of my estate.